Okay, so it's almost 10 past 7, so we can start talking about Salingers now that we have solved the schedule issues.
Salinger.
Salinger, okay. I'm going to talk about his life because there's part of them that are interesting. Well, this story specifically was brought and published in 1948 and appeared on the New Yorker. But the story of Salinger starts writing much sooner. Like at the beginning, well, he had trouble at the school, much like the main character of Catcher in the Rye. If you have read it, the kid in the novel doesn't fit in any school, has problems with fitting with his classmates and with the institutions and everything. And Salinger's life is much like that. He was enrolled at a private school by his parents, but he had also trouble fitting at the new school. And well, after trying for a few plays where he appeared and where they say that were the place that they were, that he saw an innate talent for drama, his father opposed this, the idea of his becoming an actor. So his parents then enrolled him at a military academy. In this military academy is where he started writing stories. They say under the covers at night with the aid of a flashlight. And well, he started writing short stories that he sent to magazines like the New Yorker, but most of them were rejected. This story, who talks about Seymour Glass, is part of a family of characters, the Glass family, which are a fictional family appearing in Salinger's short fiction stories. In many different stories, and he wrote about this family all through his life after the first one. Well, after the military academy, he tried different things. His father wanted him to learn about the meat importing business on meat, and he actually went to work at a company in Austria, in Vienna. But Salinger didn't like it. He was so disgusted by the slaughterhouses that he firmly decided to embark on a different career path. Actually, his disgust for the meat business and his rejections of this influenced him to be a vegetarian as an adult, which now is more common, but at the time, to be a vegetarian was like quite surprising. And after that, he kept trying to write more seriously. Some of his stories got actually published and started to do it in a more consistent basis. Even one of them was published on the New Yorker. It was quite difficult to do. But then he was drafted into the army for World War II. He fought a lot in World War II because some of these biographies where you read like, yeah, they went to the war. Sometimes it seems like they were there doing not much, but he was in many different battles. He was on the D-Day, he fought in Normandy, and at some point he started working for the counterintelligence and infiltrating concentration camps because he spoke French and German. And then in Europe, when he was there because of the war, he met Ernest Hemingway, which at the time was a reporter in Paris, and they established a friendship. They were impressed by each other, by not only what they talk and the conversations they had, but because of their works, and continue writing afterwards, after the war. He married a German girl who came after the war with him to the States, but the marriage only lasted 8 months, and then she went back to Germany. And then he started working on his writing more seriously. He kept writing until in 1947, as we said before, he sent to the New Yorker a story called The Banana Fish. And this, at the time, fiction, the person who was at the time the fiction edition of the New Yorker was impressed by the quality of the story, but asked Salinger to revise it, to work on it. And he did for a year. For an entire year, he reworked what was called the BANANAFISH until the final version that we have read. And after that, when a few years later, in 1951, he published The Catcher in the Rye, which was an immediate popular success, sold many copies. And it was, critically, he received mixed reviews. On one hand, there were reviews as the one in the New York Times, which described it as an unusually brilliant first novel. But there were other critics also saying that it was immoral because of how the kid is and everything that happens. Like he uses religious slurs and freely discusses casual sex and prostitution. This didn't like. This wasn't very likable for some of the critics. But anyways, it spent 30 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. And as a note that is interesting, in 1979, a study of censorship noted that The Catcher in the Rye had the dubious distinction of being at once the most frequently censored book across the nation, the United States, and the second most frequently taught novel in public high schools, both things at the same time. And after this became, well, the typical very famous writer life, where some of them seclude and don't want to talk to the media and have like a lot of different romantic stories here and then that for me are not as important as this that I have said. He died quite recently in 2010, in 2010 at 91 years old. So now that we know all this stuff about Salinger, let's start with your opinions about the story. Let's start with Eloisa, for example. What do you think of the story? Did you like it?
I just arrived. I was thinking I'm going to be the last one. I wasn't prepared for this.
I'm starting from the last one now, unless you need more time.
It's alright. It's alright.
Okay.
Yeah, I like it. The story. I like the story. For me, it was short. Even I read he rewrite it to do it longer. For me, it was I don't know. I wanted more information about the life, the past life of, and the context of why he does what he does at the end. Yeah, I like the story because I don't know, it's a good example of lack of communication between the characters, and lack of sympathy. Yeah, I like the story in general.
Good. Carlos, what do you think?
Well, I found it kind of curious more than liking. I thought it was a strange. I think the ending leaves it very open. I mean, it's not clear why he commits suicide. So I kind of felt that like wanting to know some more about the Seymour life to see why he does that. So again, you can think about this maybe the mental disorder, maybe there's he doesn't fit after coming back from the war, like but anyways, I thought it was interesting.
You're muted, Adrian. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. That's it.
No, sorry.
No, I was muted. Thank you,
Yeah.
Carlos.
Okay.
Antonio, what do you think of the story? Another one that is
You're
muted.
also muted.
Antonio's muted.
We are all muted.
Today is the muted day.
Sorry, I was talking on mute. Yeah, mute. Yeah. No, I said that I like it. Okay. I think it was somehow shocking. Okay, not only because of the end, but the what is happening, because you know it's appearing having some kind of casual conversation at the beginning. Moria was talking to her mother. Then we changed from the scenario to introduce the real main character of the story, Seymour. Okay, and now we start, but you know, when we already have contact with Seymour, the first contact, he lying and wearing a robe, etc. on the beach. We already know him because of the conversation between Muriel and her mother. So it has been quite interesting the way of introducing the character of Seymour through that phone call. And then we go to this shocking end. But at the end of the day, you know, putting all the pieces together, I think for me makes sense. And it's quite interesting subject. Okay, she's a war veteran. Obviously, there is a reason for that we are not told on detail, but obviously it's about the consequences of his mental status, mental illness, could be post-traumatic stress disease or something like that, and it's quite shocking how what triggers her decision for the suicide. You know, that simple chit chat with the girl, and I think it's quite interesting. And it's much as the more I'm thinking about the story, the more deep I think are the real message it's sending to us. Maybe we can investigate or dig into that. That's all for me now, right now.
Yeah, I was talking, but I was mute too. Okay, thank you, Antonio. Eugenia, what do you think? You're muted, by the way.
I'm not muted, I hope.
Yeah.
I like the story. I wasn't expecting it to be like this, but actually it makes sense of what little I know of Salinger. It's the first time I read something of his, though I've been meaning for years to read The Catcher in the Rye, because I actually have a distant cousin who is a writer, and his pseudonym is The Catcher in the Rye, so because he's obsessed with that book. So I was really hoping to read it. Given the themes, I thought this would be a bit more different. I liked it. Of course, the ending is shock value. It's meant to shock you and make you reread the text again and think, wow. I think I know what led to this, but I have to read it again to see for myself. And now that Adrian, you gave this short introduction, I think I understand more, because just from reading it without knowing he was in the war, I already got a feeling like he must know what it feels like to be back from that sort of experience, or has siblings who fought in the war and have come back with PTSD and really deep scars, mental scars from it. So I really think it's a very interesting one, and personally I love the title and the small banana fish story that he and Seymour tells the little girl. I really thought it was very fun and very 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 light, and I don't know, it gave it a touch of originality that I wasn't expecting. I really liked it.
Good. Mo, if you please.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this story. I don't dislike it. I don't know that it's like my favorite story in the world. I like the juxtaposition between the kind of witty, bantery, lighthearted story, and then the very sort of casual way that he includes the suicide at the end. I think that was well done, like interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel very engaged with it. I don't know if it's because we are thrown into the middle of these characters, and like you were saying, these characters appear in other stories as well. So maybe it's better to have an overview of the entire family and to read all the stories together. And yeah, I don't know, like also when I was reading the first part with the girl talking to her mother, and for some reason it like popped into my head that she was gonna have a split personality or something, and that Seymour was going to be one of her like personalities, just the way they were talking. And for some reason I was like, okay, that's what's gonna happen, and then it didn't, and it like threw me off, so I had to like readjust completely. And so I was like, oh, he's an actual person, okay. So that might have affected how I read it as well. But yeah, like I don't know, I liked it, but I also feel like there was something missing. Maybe I also wanted it to be longer. I forget who said that, but somebody was saying that. So, and that's all.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, what do you think?
I liked it, but I had to read about it to like.
Your screen freezed. Well, it'll be back in a few seconds. Now you're back. I think we can hear you now.
Okay, I liked it, but I had to read about it, about the story, to understand it more. Like all you said at the beginning, Adrian. The style, the friendship with Hemingway, you know, it's the same sort of style. I've also read that, where it lets you discover things by yourself. It doesn't actually tell you everything, and it doesn't tell you anything, basically. And it is, yes, about not being able to communicate, not fitting in.
We lost you again. Last thing we heard from you is about communication and not fitting in.
I'm with Antonio that he said the more you think about it, the more things you get out of this story.
Thank you. Ale, did you like it?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting one. I like the dialogue. I thought it was the flow was very smooth, and all the conversation was like fun to read, and like very easy to follow. But yes, I think that to get the point of the whole story, you need to read about it. I don't know, because if this was the first story of the Glass family, if this was maybe the first famous story of Salinger, how did this become a success? Because how do you understand everything if you don't understand the context? Maybe if you have fought in the war, maybe you have lived a war, you understand this. But it was kind of, why is this guy, why did you kill yourself in this way? Like everything's so casual now, you kill yourself. So also there's some things in the story which are not developed, like something with the trees, something with the granny, that I don't know if they are developed in future stories. But yeah, I think I like the style. I like all how the dialogue was constructed. But yes, I missed the point of the suicide.
Okay, Raquel?
Well, I can say that I have loved the story, but to understand it all, after reading it, I did as Jessica did. I had to go and look for an analysis to understand it all, because as the story unfolds, you can see that there is certain information, certain background that you don't know, and you maybe you need to know to understand it all. And what I liked the most was how the writer Salinger resolves the story. In just 3 lines, it makes you feel startled. And yes, we need to analyze what happens to these main characters. He feels an outcast from after having been enrolled in war affairs. He doesn't understand American society as it is now. He doesn't fit in Europe affairs any longer. And well, I can imagine how he feels and why he does what he does. And for me, the story is very, very well developed. I loved it.
Okay, and the last but not least, Andrea.
So I had like different reactions reading through this story. Like actually, I like the beginning, the first part. I like the female character and the style of the dialogue with the mother. I thought it was going to go to other like direction. And the second part, the part where he's at the beach. Sorry, but it really creeps me out. Like the interaction with the girl, it was like very creepy for me. And the ending was like very shocking, as you guys have said, very unexpected. So I don't know. I think it's like I can see like it's a very good story. It's easy to read. But I don't know. Some part of me like kind of wishes that I have never read it. If you know what I mean, like it was not very enjoyable. But I can say yes, it's a good story and it's well written. So I don't know. I hope we can discuss more. Like and at the end, I say no, it's a very good story, and I really like it.
Okay. Yeah, about the part with the little kid, I don't know, because I think our perspective of things has shifted a lot since when this story was written. Like I think nowadays, if you see an adult, especially a male, interacting with a little kid, immediately you feel that something's wrong. And I don't know, I was going to say, I don't know why. I don't know if that's accurate, like we should feel like that or not, because maybe at the time for adults to interact at all alone with little kids in a playful way is not so bad. But it's true that looking at it from our perspective, the moment where I think he bites her ankle or grabs her,
like her feet.
Yeah, but it's like, for the way I saw it, is like playing peacefully and just being foolish around, because he says a lot of stupid dad jokes, the ones that are like very easy and playing with words and stuff. So I didn't see anything creepy, but I had the sensation all the time that I still feel something creepy. It's like nowadays we see that as something being bad for some reason, but maybe at the time it wasn't so bad that adult played with kids alone. I don't know. Anyways, I enjoyed the story a lot. I think it was not only very well written, but also that it has a powerful impact with what it says. And the character that I love the most is the mother of the girl. It's the character that evolves the most in the entire story. Like at the beginning, you are thinking, oh my God, what an obnoxious woman, leave your daughter alone, stop pushing her and pressuring her and telling her stuff. And at the end of the story, you are like, oh my God, she was right. Like so the daughter was like, was being well advised by the mother. Anyways, in overall, very good story. So thank you, Jessica, to you and your mother for suggesting it.
Happened to me.
Yeah, sorry, Antonio.
Yeah, I agree with you that I was thinking that there was going to be something sexual or inappropriate between the sorry, I forgot the name of the guy. Sigmund, sorry, I was thinking civil conservatism. Yeah, between him and the girl. But I think when you were saying, I was thinking that maybe if we were reading like 20, 25 years ago, it would be different. It looks like as now we are more sensitive against sexual discrimination or child abuse. 30 years ago we were not. Okay, of course this is good, but maybe it's not so good to be able to understand a storybook, that a novel that was written 70 years ago. It's quite an interesting thought. Okay, because you know it's always the moment some work was written. It's also important in order to not to allow us to analyze or review the story from our today's eyes or brain, but be more aseptic about that. But obviously it conditioned my reading. Maybe it didn't allow me to enjoy or to be focused on the real issue. That was, of course, the storm in oh, I forgot the name again. Seymour's mind. But I think it's an interesting thought, not only for this book but from some other books.
I don't think we were meant to see their interaction as creepy at all. It's just
I did.
a guy
Maybe
play.
it's just me.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I said I don't think that was the intention of the author at all. Like I don't think that
Absolutely
was
not. Of
intended.
course, absolutely not.
Because we've been we have this stranger danger, like we've been inundated with images of that everybody is like a sexual predator, which is good to be aware of, but also like most people are not, and most people are like not going to interact that way with a child. The part that I did find kind of creepy was more actually the Salinger's description of the little girl at first. It's like she's wearing a two-piece bathing suit, and he's like, oh, but she wouldn't need the upper part for many years. And it's like something really common that authors do, especially back then, that they focus on women's breasts or lack thereof, like so much. And I find that creepy. It's like it's a little girl, and in that way he almost does sexualize her to the point where I understand why then later you almost think, oh, what's gonna happen? Because the author starts that way, like, oh, she is wearing a two-piece, but she doesn't need it because let's focus on her chest. Like, I don't know. It's not uncommon, but I don't like it. And I think it's
maybe
a symptom of its era.
Maybe just a way of telling that the girl is underage.
Yeah, and that's the only way that you can think to do that is by
The
focusing
thing is,
on
I thought the same. It made me uncomfortable, and I thought maybe it's only just to tell us her age or something. But then I remember there's this passage where where when he's talking about the other girl that he was with, and this he actually says that the little girl is only three. So he's telling us that with only that detail that this little girl is a bit older than the 3-year-old girl. So it's not at all necessary to put this detail of the girl's breasts or lack thereof, because I thought it only made me more puzzled, because I really couldn't picture the girl's age. Like how small can she be? How much of a baby can she be that it will be a lot of years before she uses a top? I used top when I was 5. I mean, this girl can't be, I don't know, 1-year-old. I don't know. It was really funny. But I think that we should look at it from a non-creepy way, but with care. I mean, I think it's because of the context. I think we can assume that they're both in a vacation. Like, we know about that Seymour and his wife are in a vacation in Florida, but I mean, likely to talk to strangers in the beach or things like that. When you're in vacation, when you're when you are, I don't know, in a different environment than your home, because it's less uncommon. I mean, I've seen children play with strangers in the beach because for a few moments, because I don't know, something happened and the stranger stepped in to help or things like that. So I really wanted to look at that from that perspective. But at first, of course I thought, I know where this is going. But I think it's because, yeah, like Mo said, we have this mindset right now that everyone is a predator, even though it's not necessarily true. But yeah, this fear of strangers that may not always be logical.
I think it's
Yeah,
just he can talk to this girl freely and even maybe smile, you know, things you can't do with adults. I don't think there's anything creepy about it. You know, it's like his last moments of happiness. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with Jessica. I think show us that he actually can speak with the girl. He can actually have communication. He have good time with the girl, but we can see how he changed, how he flips his mind when he's in the elevator. How he basically can fit with society and with adults, and he can have actually a communication with an adult, with his own wife or with another adult, and that's to check how he changed, I think.
Yeah, it's also interesting how the doctor of the hotel realizes that he has some mental disorder while he's in the piano with the girls. So maybe with this narrative, we can say that with the adults, he's like a dick, but with the children, he's a very beautiful person. So maybe it's in that moment when the doctor, oh, this guy is crazy. I got it. So I don't know. I was just trying to read that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the communication, the story, as Jessica was saying, is an issue between most of the characters, except for Seymour and Sybil, the little kid, because the mother and the daughter, they barely understand each other. Like they have two monologues and try to overlap each other. And when the daughter is talking about the psychiatrist that they meet at the bar, what she says all the time is that it was so noisy that we couldn't talk. And between Seymour and what's her face, the name of the wife, I can't remember the name.
Muriel.
Yeah, the communication between them is non-existent through the story, and she doesn't really know what is happening inside his mind. So basically, nobody communicates with anybody except for him with the kid. Carlos, you had your hand up.
Yes, but I had a doctor's appointment I had to do in real time. Sorry, so I don't know if my comment was any more valid. It was when I had to get out. Some people commenting about the relationship between the Seymour and the kid, whether it was creepy or appropriate. And at least my experience in the 90s living in the US is that an adult would not get anywhere within 1 or 2 meters of a kid in a supermarket, because then the parents would come and look at you weird. While in Spain it's much more common to talk to a little kid. In the US, at least back then, it was not very common at all. And what I think that, but for me, the interaction was not so much creepy as just strange. I mean, I think normally an adult would not spend so much time talking to a kid and wouldn't tell the kid about the banana fish that dies because of the fever and the things. So I think it's more, to me, it can be more a sense of a strange relationship more than a creepy one. But anyways, maybe you've already talked about this.
No, we were at it, and it's a good comment, because I don't think that the interaction was not only creepy, but I didn't find it weird. I mean, there are some elements that if you think too much about them, like, yeah, the fish died, like, what the fuck, or stuff like that, it could be creepy. But here in Spain, we used to go hunting gamusinos when we are little kids, which are imaginary animals that our parents and teachers or staff in summer camps and such invent for.
Johan, what?
What? Gamusinos. In the Canary Islands, you don't have gamusinos.
We don't have that.
Okay. Well, they are real. They exist.
Gamusinos.
But only in the peninsula, not in the islands. And these are imaginary animals that adult invents for kids, and they go to the woods to hunt them and make a fire sometimes, or just with the flashlights to have fun around with the kids, like making them believe that these fantastical creatures exist. And
There's a gamusino.
Un dodo, no?
I have never imagined it like that.
It's from the Up movie.
Like a big
Have
dodo.
you seen it?
There is no official version, I believe.
No.
It's an semi-official gamusino.
So I thought of the banana fishes like that, like, well, he was playing around with the kid, making jokes and talking about random stuff. I do think, though, that the banana fishes have maybe some symbolic meaning that I can't really see through, but I feel that is there. Like, for example, what the fishes do is go to where the bananas are, eat a lot of bananas, because they like the bananas a lot, and then, because they have eaten too many bananas, they die. They can't go back. And about Seymour Glass, and I see some connection there, but I don't know exactly what it is. Something happens through the story. Maybe he has too much fun or whatever, and then he suicides. He dies. He kills himself. It's like as if he ate too many bananas and then he died. I don't know. That's a connection that I'm making, but it may be wrong. The thing is that I didn't see anything between the relationship of the two that is not good, that is not okay. Like, I've been playing with my nephews or with usually family members, because strangers don't let you hear my kid play with him, right? But with little kids for long times, and I don't feel that that's wrong.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's not socially accepted in the US, at least in the 90s. I don't know.
It's not the 90s, though. We're talking about the 1948.
Yes, I have no idea.
After the war, yeah. And about
Yeah, well, there's something.
Sorry.
No,
sorry.
go ahead.
If you're gonna, I want to talk about the banana fish.
Yeah. Okay.
No, yes, continue.
So about the banana, I really like the banana fish story, actually. It was like my favorite part of the story, with the first dialogue between the woman and the mother. I think it has to be related in some way. My interpretation, I don't know if it's correct, but I think there's this thing of like the guilt of the survivors, and some soldiers maybe think that they shouldn't have come back from the war. They should have died in the war, because a lot of there's like friends and people die in the war. So I thought it could be like a way of expressing this kind of guilt, like because the banana fish go into the cave, but it has to die there. It can't go back. So I don't know, maybe I was reading too much into it, but I think it has to have some kind of connection.
For me, it was the same thing. It was like he was talking about how he felt. His life was.
Yeah, I understood it a similar way to Adrian. Just like, I don't know, I didn't think specifically, but just that you consumed too much of something, too much of life generally, or you saw too much, you saw things you shouldn't see, or I don't know, it's hard to say because we don't know much about his background at all, but that he was just kind of up to here with whatever it is, whatever life had handed him, and just like, okay, that's it. Can't keep dealing with it.
I mean, I agree that you say we lack a lot of information, but I think we can assume that something that happens a lot, I think, with people that have a big trauma is that they don't feel that people understand them when they come back for more. I mean, it's like they don't feel it's not so much as not fitting in, but there's not like people understand what they're going through and how they feel. and they feel themselves like different, detached from the rest.
I think it's definitely.
Go ahead.
It's definitely it's the banana fish for me was you've consumed too much of something, and you just die. That's the fever that they get. But I think the actual trigger to the suicide was the lady in the lift. You know, he insists, my feet are normal, you know, like saying, I'm normal, why are you staring at me? This thing that happens to him constantly. He's okay with the kids, they're having a normal conversation. And then this lady comes and he thinks, you know, I'm normal, why are you staring at me? And that's enough to set him off. That's how he feels always around adults.
My interpretation is that the banana fish is actually Seymour, okay, and the bananas are those traumas, negative thoughts that are making him being a person mentally ill. Okay, we need to understand that he started having, as they are telling the story, the mother and Muriel, he started having strange behaviors since he was in Germany. Okay, he was recently discharged from the hospital. We don't know if this just after the war or during the war, but he started behaving wrong just during the war. Okay, he went to a hospital for veterans and then he was discharged. Okay, so my interpretation is that the bananas are those things that he's swallowing, okay, traumas, negative thoughts, okay, and as the banana fish, Seymour is getting to a point that he has eaten or swallowed too much, okay, he cannot go beyond, okay, and the girl, when the girl says, I have seen a banana fish, okay, something triggers in him, okay, he starts realizing he's not exactly well, and when he's having this meeting with the lady is the continuation of the trigger or the real trigger for that, okay, because he's now seeing somebody ill, somebody mentally ill, so he realizes he's not okay, so he takes the final determination of using the gun in his head, committing suicide. That's my thought. I'm also I don't know if this somehow can have some kind of relationship with the set of American set of going bananas, but it could be I don't know what's the origin for that, okay, but I cannot start thinking that on that also. I mean, it's just an interpretation. So, but I think everyone we must agree that obviously. But it's interesting what Jessica said. I'm not sure now. I thought the trigger was the kid, but now maybe the trigger was the lady, or maybe he need both in order to take the decision of committing suicide. No.
He had tried suicide in the past, just we don't know in the story. But as a member of the Glass family, Seymour Glass shows up in at least 3 or 4 different stories and novellas by Salinger. And actually he has quite a background, a biography. Seymour was a spiritual savant and brilliant intellectual and became a professor at Columbia at 20. Along with his siblings, he was a regular star on the radio program He's a Wise Child. He fought in the European theater of World War II and was deeply scarred by the experience. This we know because of this story. In 1941, he attempts suicide by slitting his wrists, but fails, as described in Rise Hide the Roof in the story. He elopes with Muriel Feder on June 4, 1942. In A Perfect Day for Banana Fish, he commits suicide while the couple are on a second honeymoon in Florida, which is what we read, and Muriel is asleep on the bed beside him at the time. However, in Seymour, an introduction, his younger brother Buddy suggests the depiction of Seymour in A Perfect Day of Bananafish more closely resembles Larry than Seymour. Okay, this is just like, even between the Glass family members, they write to each other and talk about each other. So that's the background of Seymour. He's mentally ill after the war.
I was going to say that at first I had the interpretation similar to Antonio regarding the issue with the bananas, but then I felt that really the let's say the traumas are something that happens to you, while bananas is something that fish willingly pig out on, really. So it's so then I didn't find a better explanation, but I didn't get convinced by that one either, because at first it was something that fills them up and leads them to die, but then at the end it's something that they eat. It's something that they say they do willingly. So at the end I couldn't find a good explanation, but I felt that it's still he identified himself with the banana fish.
And the thing is, I don't think that is that important what exactly triggered him to commit suicide. Like, it could be anything, honestly, because we kind of assume that he has his like background of mental illness because they mentioned the hospital. So honestly, it could be anything. I don't think that even the encounter with the woman in the elevator is so important in the story.
I don't have the same feeling. Didn't he drive the car into a tree, like previously to the start of the story?
Yeah,
Like,
what about the trees? What?
His in-laws were fixing the car because well, I don't know exactly how it was described, but I had the feeling that he did it on purpose. That it was not an accident.
Yeah, like the mother was warning to the girl to not let him drive because he was gonna do funny things with the trees. So yes, you can interpret that he wants to smash them.
Crash the car into the trees. Okay, I didn't get it when I was reading it.
I was going to say also before that, just to continue with the creepy thing with the girl, is that there's a moment that she's wearing a yellow swimsuit, but he says it's blue, so she could get closer to her, and then he said, "Oh no, yeah, it's yellow." So that's also creepy. And I don't know how to interpret that in another way.
Yeah, it feels like a joke to me. Like, it's obviously that it's yellow. He says, "Oh, it's blue," and then it's obvious that it's yellow. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
I think it depends on how you're seeing it. Like, if you're going into it thinking it's creepy, like, you're gonna interpret everything as being creepy. But if you're going into it thinking, oh, it's just a guy interacting with a kid, like, that's how people interact with kids. Like, they always do stuff like that. Oh, you know, like silly little jokes like, oh, but isn't your nose here or whatever, like, you know, like stupid things like that the kid has to correct you, and like that's a very common, like, so yeah, I think it's just, I mean, after finishing the story, I think we can say it was just like innocent, like fun, like he's just teasing her. And but yeah, if you're going into it thinking like, oh God, what's this guy gonna do to the kid? Then like, yeah, it seems like some sort of trick to get her closer.
Yeah, I think it was
especially the bit where the girl says to him, "Yeah, when you were playing the piano, she sat on your lap," and I thought, I'm going to try and stop thinking that this man is a pedophile. I really don't want to think this. I really want to keep this innocent. He's just playing with the kid. He's just teasing her. He's just being easygoing, nothing more. But I think that it can easily be misinterpreted. I don't know if it was.
I think like in a way he does have an inappropriate relationship with kids because he's like, they're his outlet for socializing, which it shouldn't be. Like, he should be able to socialize with adults, but like he can't, as we see, like he doesn't know how to. So he's using the kids in a way that you shouldn't really as an adult, but not in a predatory way, I guess, or that's how I interpreted it anyway. It's just in a, you can say whatever you want to kids and they don't have the social knowledge to be like, to think you're weird. Like you can talk about banana fish and they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like they're not gonna think you're strange. So
another thing that nobody comments that shocked me a little bit, then the mother of the girl, she's talking with the girl, she's in a beach. She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to the bar. Leave a girl alone on the beach. Then come on, not only then she can meet with the strangers, then can be nice people. Then she can draw on the water. On like, what's a deep negligence about that? I was kind of like, what, you are going to the bar and you leave your daughter alone? I don't know. For me, it was kind of strange as well.
but that was like, that's how it worked back then. Like kids would go out by themselves all day and play and come home when the sun sets, and it was fine because other people will look out for your kids and the kids will look out for themselves. Like my mom grew up in the 50s and they lived by a lake, and she and her brothers would go and play at the lake by themselves. I mean, they were with each other, but there was no adults there. And it was just like, I don't know, you teach your kids what to do and then you trust that they'll be fine. And 9 times out of 10 they were. So I didn't find that weird either, I guess, for the time period. I think it was like, yeah, that's just how you, like, kids were much more independent than now.
Yeah, even our generation, when we were kids, I think we had much more freedom in that sense. Like we could play in the street all day and our parents wouldn't worry too much. Nowadays, if they don't look a smartphone or a GPS knapsack tracking to the kids, it's just because the law maybe doesn't allow it, but many parents will do. Like we are maybe not overly worried, like some accidents happen, so maybe you want to take care about your kid, but much more worried than before, I would say. I have a theory about why he suicides related to what you were saying, many of you, that I just think of, which is that maybe he is a pedophile, but he hasn't done anything yet. And then he kills himself to avoid doing anything to the kids. There's a story by, I'm not going to remember his name, a story that we had a good discussion about a book of short stories by this author, which is a Native American author. And one of the stories is about a pedophile that has been convicted and released. And the entire story is he's trying to fight the urge and the craze of kids, of being with kids and stuff like that, resisting all temptation. The story is devastating. This is very, very intense and very, very dark. And now that you were talking about it, like maybe there's something creepy that I thought, oh, this may be like that. Like he's trying to himself to, like locking himself out of life so he can harm kids. This is just a very wild theory.
I think in 1948, just after the Second World War, plus he was in Germany, the concentration camps and everything that he's seen, I think it really is just that he has come back totally deranged. He just doesn't fit in. to be a pedophile on top of it all, he would have, I mean, that's just too much. He would have committed suicide long ago, I think.
Yeah, no, probably, yeah. It's only the war and the mental illness.
I think the author, he wants to leave it open for us to make our own theories. I mean, the way he describes the suicide is he just walks in, opens the gun, closes it, and shoots. I mean, if he wanted to give a particular explanation, I think he would have put some description of his thoughts before killing himself. because it's really, he doesn't give any real hint. I mean, what Adrian says is a possibility. I'm more along the lines of Jessica, that I think is more due to the traumas that he's just not, he has not recovered properly. But I think the author doesn't give any, he doesn't take any particular view on it. Or he doesn't share it if he has it.
Well, the little information we get, that is his style, that's Salinger's style in general. It points to the war. Especially in that time, there's no, I mean, it's not, so, as we said before, it's not such a common thing to see, you know, to interpret it as a pedophile, an interaction with a man and a girl.
Yeah.
The few details we do get points to the war.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jessica. There is nothing to point. The only thing that is pointing to be a pedophile is our 21st century thoughts. Okay, that's the only thing, because there is nothing in the story that can lead. I was being afraid of his being going to behave as a pedophile, but it was me, nothing on the story, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we were readers in the 1940s, we couldn't have seen much there.
Yeah, even in the 70s or in the 80s, it's different, you know. I think it's something from the last 25, 20 years ago. There is I think it's a Danish movie, or I don't know, it's German or Danish movie. The main character is some Danish actor. It's called The Hunt, La Caza. It's about a man that is working in a kindergarten, and by some point of confusion, the other workers on the childcare thinks that he has abused of one girl. It's false. At all the stress and that's because the people is, at the end of the day, was that everyone, all the adults there, were sensitive about this kind of behavior between a man and a kid, those children. So it's more, you know, I don't know if it's fair or if we shouldn't be thinking about that just in order to protect the children, okay? But it is what it is right now. In the same way that we are now more sensitive with machist behavior, for example, or any kind of discrimination. That's part of the evolution. Has good things, maybe some other things that are not so good. But at the end of the day, I think it's a proper evolution, in my opinion. But we are losing something for having the weak people, the children here, more protected.
I think, and I know we are talking about a very sensitive topic right now, but I think in my case, for example, the 21st century mind that you mentioned is more like not as much as the pedophile cases, like real cases that have happened, but more like this kind of tendency of some men to sexualize women from a very early age.
Absolutely. I mean, in the last...
Like...
No, but it's been, the society has been educating me, at least, okay? Because I am realizing and accepting, not very proud, but to think that some of my behavior could be called micromachism, okay? That happened, okay? And that's something we need to learn after, okay? That's something. Also, there's some kind of jokes that could be making fun of, I don't know, gypsies, black people, women. Obviously, this is something we need to put in the proper context, not doing any cause towards getting a laugh. So it's something that the society has been teaching me. But in the same way, as I was saying before, that kind of evolution in the society towards my mind, at least, okay, has been also setting some limitations in order to making me to have some prejudice towards having some people, some groups protected against this kind of behaviors. It's complicated. Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Andrea. I think that I think it's in part a consequence of this mindset of ours today. I think it's a consequence of this notion that women can only be attractive if they're young, and their value resides in them being attractive, while men are always attractive. Youth doesn't have anything to do with it.
But that's not a new conception. I think that's,
yeah, I know, but I think that now it's become even more spread. Don't know exactly how to explain it, but I think that it has become even more obvious than before, and that's why we are so much more aware of it, that we automatically assume all these sort of things. Like, for example, we're reading this the short story and thinking this man must be a pedophile for giving this girl the time of the day, because we're so used to it and so aware to this kind of behavior right now. I think so. And it's so common for us to see it and call it out, then I think it's the only thing we're able to see in this sort of situations, even though it might be a very innocent and very very normal exchange that wouldn't raise any alarms if it was between I don't know, two people with 12-year-olds, a boy and a girl, or a girl and a girl, or a boy and a boy. But because it's an older man and a young girl, we're automatically suspicious, because this has been going on for so long. That's what I think, at least. And I do think there's a pattern of young women being overly sexualized. I remember right now all the promotionary material for the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of Lolita. Oh my god. It was so I'm not saying that the film's promotional material was bad. I'm just saying that it wouldn't fly by today, of course, but also that it called viewers to go watch the film, because it was so scandalous for this sort of relationship to be on film, that everyone had to see it and go talk about it. That's what the movie was trying to accomplish. But there are a lot of spots. I don't know if you've seen it, but everyone say lots of people from different backgrounds, from different socioeconomic classes, saying, "I can't believe they made a movie out of Lolita," because the controversy is the main reason why people should go watch a film, in the filmmakers and the studio's opinion. Because why? Because it depicted a very inappropriate relationship, if we can even call it relationship. So that's why I think some of us or all of us even thought about it. I think there's a reason why, and I think it may make more sense or less sense, or it may be more or less justified, but I think it makes sense.
I feel that is the other way around somehow. Like, we are now much more aware of sexual abuse towards minors, but that it was much more common in the past to have regular marriage and with little kids. Like, in many phases in history, many men, and it still happens in some countries with specific cultures, older men marry very, very young women, and even 8-9-year-olds, which for now us here is atrocious, but that through history has been seen as something very normal, quite normal. And it's only nowadays, it's only now that we start rationalizing that as something bad, that shouldn't happen. That's why we are much more aware of what is happening in the story than before, I guess.
Yeah, it's part of the evolution of the society as a society. Okay, it has most of good things, but there are some other things that could be complicated to deal with. So it is what it is. Okay, I mean, and there are even interpretations of some. I remember also the story of the Odyssey, well, Iliad. I don't know the name in English, Iliad. Okay, what they told the war of Troy. Okay, where Patroclus is called the friend, no, the cousin of Achilles. In fact, in the original story, Patroclus is the lover of Achilles. Okay, but in many translations it hasn't been told like that because obviously was not accepted by the society. So it was now the understanding was modified in order to make it more comfortable for the reader of a time. Okay, and in a different time, of course, it could be like now. It can be not so scandalous, for example. Okay, so this is also happening in literature. Also, Lolita now, for example, is the story of Lolita Nabokov is causing us kind of a strange sense. Okay, but maybe in the original times it was only considered some romantic love with a young woman. Nothing happened. But at that very time,
that's not how
No, it
Lolita
didn't.
was
No.
at all.
No.
I mean,
Supposed
it
to
was,
be
but it was
bad.
considered most in a romantic way. I mean, for social
Sadly,
controversy.
I
Okay,
must say,
but for
some
example,
book
I'm
critics
telling you the
really
other.
regarded it as a romantic story and saw it as an age difference romance. I'm sorry to have to say it, but it's true.
In Lolita?
Even though Nabokov had to go himself on an interview and say, no, it's not a romance. It's a story from a pedophile's point of view. It's not real. The romance is not there. It's in his mind. But yeah, it's because people thought that it was a romantic story.
No, because I mean, in his
now,
mind, it's a romance. It's another book, okay. But for him, for the person that is telling the story, it is a romance. So, okay, obviously, from our position, we interpret her like the story of a pedophile and the motivation, how he sees his life. And there is also many books about people mentally ill, stories about people mentally ill, that when you listen, if they are the crazy person is telling you the story, is telling you a fantasy or something that is not really there. Okay, but you realize you can have some empathy for this person, not particularly for Lolitas, but for some other, because you can understand how do they feel. Maybe you don't approve that, but you can be in a closer position to this person, to not to accept, but having empathy is understanding the feelings, not agreeing with the feelings, and that's my view for this kind of situations. But of course, it's tricky. So I mean, not reading a book because you don't like the subject, maybe is giving you a lot of limitations. Okay, of course, you are free to choose what kind of story you want to read about. Okay, but I think having open mind is usually a good way of enjoying the story, the book, the song, the movie, theater, etc.
I'm reading about Lolita, its publication and reception, and it says here that it was banned in the UK and in France. British customs officers were then instructed, we're talking about 1957, to seize all copies entering the United Kingdom. In December 1956, France followed suit, and the Minister of the Interior banned Lolita for 2 years. And then it was published again in Britain, in London in 1959, but that was controversial enough to contribute to the end of the political career of the Conservative Member of Parliament, Nigel Nicholson, one of the publisher's partners. It seems that the reception was quite controversial. Yeah.
It's kind of
And
interesting.
it was
because,
only a couple of years later.
I was going to say it was kind of interesting because recently there has been a lot of polemics in France because in the 60s and 70s, many French intellectuals thought and wrote that it was okay for them to get ready to have sexual interactions with a very, very young girls. And now there's a lot of criticism for that. So it's kind of funny how things change around in France quite fast. Well, in fact, nowadays, Macron, he got involved with his teacher when he was 15 years old. So it's
No, actually he didn't.
Backwards, we don't see it as bad as if it were a man and a woman.
Eugenia, that's discrimination.
I know it's a double standard, but it doesn't seem as bad. I don't know what in your minds.
I mean,
that's
that
actually
seems bad
another
to
issue.
me. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's what our society says, but as a teacher, that's horrific. Like,
Well, they're, youngsters are very vulnerable and can be impressed quite easily.
Yeah, going back to the story, to the relationship between them, where we're not actually leaving the topic, but linking it with the story. I don't think it's overly sexualizing not even sexualizing at all the little kid. I saw the moments of slight touching and well, like some kind of intimacy that they have as a way to show by Salinger that they are very comfortable with each other. It's obvious that they have been playing in the beach for maybe a few days and that the kid is comfortable with him and that he is comfortable with her because he can socialize with her somehow instead of, but he can with adults. So I see that just as a show of comfortableness, or however you say that.
There is a very big difference between the reaction from the kid and the reaction from the woman in the hotel, like in the hotel, you know, because it looks to me like he doesn't feel being judged by the kid, but when he realizes that the other, or he thinks the lady in the hotel is judging him, okay, is when he's having that final reaction. Okay, so maybe, of course, it looks like he's comfortable with the kid because the kid is treating him just as a normal person, or he feels the kid is treating him like a normal person, not judging for his behavior or the way he looks like, or etc. So maybe it's a very common feeling in the paranoia. That is one of the symptoms of the post-traumatic stress disease. After being in the war could be what the Seymour is suffering.
I mean, for me, the kid does not appear sexualized at all because, I mean, when she's first introduced, she's wearing a two-piece bathing suit, which I was surprised. I didn't know at that time they had the two pieces already. And it says like, what I say, like, but the top part, he will not use it until 10 years from now or something like that. So I imagine he must have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years old, just old enough to have the vocabulary that she and the way she talked. But I didn't think she was displayed as sexualized at all.
We were talking about this when you were not here because of the other thing, and yeah, but what Mo was saying is that well, I'm not going to say it right, Mo. Maybe you just say it yourself.
yeah, I mean, that part may be uncomfortable. That's the only part that I did find that the author sort of, not even him particularly, but it's sort of really common thing to do, is that is the only part that kind of sexualizes her. Not that she's a sexual being yet, but that's like something important that you need to point out about a 5-year-old, that like, that's just, I mean, it's something annoyingly common in writing, and I find it really disgusting. Okay. I mean, it ties into what Eugenio was saying earlier, is that we view women, and that includes girls, as sexual objects, and that's their worth. And so it must be commented upon, even though she's 5, it must be commented upon that her chest, like it's, I don't know, that part I did not like.
But I interpreted like she was wearing a two-piece, like that, whatever bathing suit, however it's called, that is pretend to be like a much older person. You know, it's the same thing you see. I don't know, in Spain now in the beach you can see girls that might be 5 or 6 years old wearing like bikinis. It's like trying to look like dress as older than what they really are. Which I mean, for me, it was more a comment on the suit than on the girl.
Yeah, I understand why.
In fact, I had to look it up in the web, what kind of bathing suit those were, because I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought the bikini was invented later on, and I had no reference to what he was talking about.
Yeah, it's just something I don't know. It's like very common in writing, particularly by men, that like, I don't know, I just find it weird, the fixation on female chest, and that it has to be described, it has to be like commented on when you wouldn't, that doesn't happen with male characters. And I understand how you would interpret it that way and innocently, but I don't know, if maybe this was the only time I noticed that happening in a story, I'd be like, oh, okay, but it's just like a very common thing that happens. So like as a trend, I find it really annoying.
I mean, I agree that it is common to describe the physical, well, the chest or the women, and also to use it to describe mountains and other things. That happens very common also. That is unnecessary. But in this case, I saw like a bathing suit that is like for much older person.
Comment on the mother. In general, even in reality, the kids you see on the beach has to comment on the parents. The kid doesn't care what it's wearing.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know. I think you're. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's a comment on the wealth of the family that they can afford in this new swimsuit. I don't know.
Well, I think it's very common for people to make kids, you know, dress up looking like adults. I mean, the kids who wear, I don't know, like bow ties or things like that. I mean, what's a 5-year-old wearing a bow tie? I mean, well, for me, what's an adult doing a bow tie either? I don't like it either way. But anyways, there's sometimes a tendency to try to make them wear things that are adult things that really don't match at all.
What I can't understand is this beauty pageants, this beauty contest for little kids.
Yes.
They are like horror contests. Like why would they do that? And people watch that, and parents send the kids. Like that's sexualizing the kids a lot because they are judging them by their physique.
Parents torture their kids in those. I mean, they force them to go to one and another and another and another, and you must win and you must wear makeup. That's torture.
For kids.
There's a very big problem nowadays with sports because there are a lot of fights between parents that some parents end up in jail, others end up in the hospital because they get into such big fights due to their kids' football matches, or they end up throwing bottles at the referee. I mean, crazy things. And it's like, you shouldn't even have a kid in the first place. Maybe you're not mistreating the kid directly, but you're making his life hell by punching the referee of his football match. It's crazy, and I don't know why that is, but many times it's because of competitiveness or just general pent-up aggression. I don't know, but it makes me very, very scared. These people live among us. They seem normal, but then they beat each other up over a kid's football match. What's wrong with them? I really don't know.
Actually, Seymour Glass looks like he could have been a good parent somehow.
Seymour
what I really
Glass,
expect.
he drives his car into trees. He's not a good parent. He's not a good husband. He's not a good anything.
You're
And
both
he
right.
go
I think we have the same
he goes on vacation.
mentally ill and
Yeah.
drives cars. I don't know. At first, I thought he was a tree hugger.
No,
But then I
let me
realized-
explain it. Let me explain it. The part where he interacts with the kid, I think that he treats the kid very well, like he's
Yes,
playfully
yes.
playing with him, yeah, with her.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's mentally ill, yes.
Yes, and traveling for a second honeymoon with a loaded gun on his suitcase is also a good sign.
Oh my god. But well, it's in the United States. You can go into a supermarket and buy a gun.
I know. I mean, the family I used to live with, they drove with a Magnum, like a Dirty Harry's gun under the seat. So yes, it's common. But
I
But
don't know
why
how
do you
it
have
was then.
Mo, I'm sorry, it's a
gun in
stereotype.
your honeymoon, like
Well, that's
in
what
a
I was
hotel in your
wondering.
honeymoon in the beach? Like, I don't know.
I was wondering if he had planned to kill himself there from the beginning. If this was like, okay, we're gonna go on this vacation, and then that's a nice place to end everything.
Well,
It's not
then,
very common, but I mean, we don't know enough. to
then
say.
again, just after the war, his routine, his custom is to always carry a gun. You know, I mean, he's been doing it for 5 years. Maybe it's just habit.
well, but I think he's been discharged from from the hospital for mental problems. So, I mean, still, if that's true, they have access to guns, and maybe he feels more safe or comfortable with one of them. But yes, I would rather not have kids near near that suitcase.
Yeah, he has mental problems and he has a gun. That's interesting. Maybe in that moment there were no controls for that.
And now there are not that
I
many
mean,
controls.
there's barely any
Well,
controls now.
Yeah, well, all
You would
these
be very
shootings.
lucky to
I
have
mean, honestly, I don't know
a
if it was
gun
better or
supermarket.
worse back then. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
all these shootings that we see of people going into school and shooting everybody, or just people shooting randomly in the streets. It's it's mentally ill people that have guns.
Well,
I don't know if I'm correct, but
controversial.
I believe when Trump took office a few years ago, he implanted he reverted a policy. He annulled a policy that was meant to control mentally ill people's access to guns. And he revoked it so that mentally ill people
Could be.
have access to guns as everyone else would. I don't know if I'm wrong,
I'm not sure.
but I believe.
You know, my cousin came back from New York just at the beginning of the coronavirus crisis, and she came back saying it's starting to blow up in New York. Yeah, everybody's getting infected, and the first thing the majority of the population has done is go out and buy a gun. You know, she said it as if, you know, they're all mad, but as if this could protect you against the virus. You know, it's just this logic is not. And this is true because she was there. she witnessed it in general, or at least the paper said, yeah.
Oh my God, logic where?
People buying toilet
What,
paper.
you can shoot
people buy
coronavirus
guns. Like,
with a Magnum.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it's
the same reason for the toilet paper, like to
Yes.
hoard and people prepare for the worst.
the
And
end of the
they
world
think,
scenario.
the apocalypse. I have to
But-
have a gun
but
because
toilet
that person over there, that neighbor, is going to come to my home to get my toilet paper from me. So I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I prefer to advocate for toilet paper stashing over gun stashing, because if doomsday comes, you're expected to go to the toilet every day. Coronavirus doesn't respect that. So you're going to go and buy all the toilet paper you want. But guns, are you planning to shoot so many people that you won't have enough guns? I don't understand.
There's
It's
a scene
the
in
exact
Simpsons.
same mentality. It's just panic buy-in, and because you can go to Walmart and buy a gun, then okay. Well, actually, they don't have Walmart in New York City, but like yeah, it's the same mentality. Like, it's the end of the world. Everything's going to end. I'm not going to be able to go to the store and buy freaking toilet paper. So I have to buy it all now. I'm not going to be able to call the police and people are going to attack me or take my stuff or whatever. And I have to be able to defend myself. It's like the same.
It's kind of funny. The same people that normally don't like the strong government, they feel that if there's not going to be the government to protect them, they need to protect themselves. So that's why they have to make their home a fortress.
I was reading that the first like important studies about PTSD were like actually in the 70s, like were describing the concrete syndrome. So maybe the guy was not very well diagnosed. He could carry a gun.
For sure.
And he drives from, I don't know where they live, to Florida and so on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Black Sambo, changing completely the topic, is the story that the little kid is reading.
Yeah.
And it existed. It's a real book. It's about a South Indian boy who lives with his father and mother. I'm going to read the plot because it's interesting. Named Black Jumbo and Black Mumbo, her father and mother, respectively. This, to me, sounds quite racist, but maybe at the time it wasn't so much. Sambo encounters 4 hungry tigers and surrenders his colorful new clothes, shoes, and umbrella so they will not eat him. And the tigers are vain, and each thinks he's better dressed than the others, and they chase each other around the tree, which is what the little kid was saying, until they are reduced to a pool of melt butter. Sambo then recovers his clothes, and his mother, Black Mumbo, makes pancakes out of the butter.
I actually knew this story. I think it was a really common story for kids. Like, my mom had a copy of the book. Like, she loved it. It was like one of her favorite stories when she was little. So we had her copy, and like I used to read it when I was a kid too. Like, I think it was a really common book for kids to read then, because it's like really easy and it's kind of funny, and yeah, and there's pancakes, so it's nice.
Are there any kids who don't like pancakes?
Yeah, I mean, it's pancakes and butter, like, and tigers. Okay, what more can you ask?
It has every element among the young Aryans.
But how long have pancakes been offered in Spain? It's not that long ago.
Here in Spain, no, quite recently.
I don't know about pancakes, but we had tortitas ever since, ever since cooking was existed in Spain. Tortitas are universal.
It's not the same thing.
Churros.
Churros, yes.
Pancakes, tortitas, and crepes are 3 different things.
Yeah, they're different things, but they are equally good. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
It's a matter of how do you companion those, actually. What did you put on them?
Anything.
Everything.
Many people put anything on it.
But tortitas, did we have tortitas? Like, I know tortas de anís that been forever, but tortitas?
Yeah.
That's new. I think for me, my impression is that it's a dish that is very easily industrialized. You can have the dough frozen, and so it became very easy. And so it was pushed into the public 10, 15 years ago, something like that.
That's a conspiracy theory.
What?
It's made by the government, so we would know.
No, but it may be true that it's quite recent, but you're very young, Eugenia. Maybe when you were a kid, there were these tortitas or whatever, but when I was a kid, there weren't any.
Oh my God. The first times I went out with my friends was to eat tortitas in the Vips restaurant.
Oh my God.
That explains a lot.
So I'm very young.
Se llama Betty Madrileña.
Yeah, also. I remember it was the only restaurant in my neighborhood that we kids were allowed to, because there were pubs and things like that we weren't allowed in. So we were always like, let's go have some tortitas with chocolate. It was our big kids' plan to go out.
Yeah, Eugenia, Eugenia, in Casa Pepe, I don't think they put tortitas, they put churros.
No.
In Casa That's favorite. Oh my god, maybe they had something similar but just didn't call it that. I don't know. But yeah, cultural and age differences suck. But it would be cool to have tortitas as a, I don't know, in the United States.
In the United States, they can eat it with everything. The first time I saw them, the family I was with, they poured maple syrup and sausage on.
Well,
Maple syrup.
in the United States, since maybe 10, 15 years ago, you got a lot of churros shops, cafes. Okay, you got a lot of Latin people really with places to sell churros.
But it's Mexican churros,
not the
they're
same.
not like ours.
Oh my god, I recently saw somewhere that someone had in America, in the US, I think in the US or Canada, was cooking and they were trying to mix different flavors without knowing what they were and if it would mesh well with each other based on people's suggestions. And there were Spanish people that were suggesting churros, and they combined churros with menta and weird things, and I was like, what are you doing? Because these people that were cooking didn't know what the churro flavor tasted like. They didn't even know it was sweet, and they just meshed it up with menta and things like that, and the end result was horrible. And I was like, you're dirty.
Oh, we can't hear you. I think like, you're trying to talk, but we can't hear you.
But churros are Spanish?
What?
Churros are Spanish. Yes.
Churros are Spanish, of course.
Very much.
What did you think? They were Canadian? No, they're not.
No, we have churros in Canada.
No doubt about it. It's very Spanish.
It's so Spanish and so very, very Spanish.
Yeah. It's a national treasure.
Whenever I have foreign students coming to my house, because I host exchange students, I give them a tour of Madrid, and I always stop by my churreria so that they would know what churros taste like. And they always invite me, so I always have churros every year without a fail. And I love it. And they don't know what they are, and they don't know, they have never tasted anything like it.
In the Netherlands, you can find them.
Yeah.
At first.
I think now they are more like worldwide spread.
Yeah. I've seen people, only a very few times, but I've seen people do like posh Instagram pictures with churros outside Spain because in Spain it's not like a very traditional thing. So it's not like, oh, it looks so cool. I'm so cool. I'm going to post an Instagram picture. But I've seen people do that, and it's like, it's funny.
We found, I can't remember well, I think it was in the UK somewhere in a farm fair or something like that. There was a stand of what they call hot Spanish cakes, and they were churros.
Yeah. Cakes?
Oh, yeah, hot Spanish cakes.
I've seen this in a Spanish hotel full of foreign people. What was cold tomato soup?
Gazpacho.
They call it cold tomato soup.
Tomato soup. Oh my god.
Well,
I mean, that's makes more sense, I guess.
It makes more sense.
That is more accurate.
It's not.
No, but in some countries they believe it is cooked as a soup. If you take a Betty Crocker's recipe book in the US, which is a very common one, it's cooked. It's heated up and then you pull it down. So for them, it's soup.
No.
Each one has their own interpretation. The same way with churros. The churros, I think officially they're not sweet. In the recipe there's no sugar in them, but outside they put in sugar everywhere.
But what is it with?
How can this be? But like, you always say churros with sugar or with chocolate, right? But not the churro itself. The churro itself doesn't have sugar.
Yeah, that's right. But it's like chocolate. At first, chocolate was when it was conceived in Latin America. It was eaten with pepper, not with sugar.
Yes, I mean chocolate is not sweet. You have to if you drink cocoa, it's very bitter. You have to add lots of sugar to make it. In Mexico, still you drink chocolate and it can be very bitter, and they use it for cooking also for mole and other dishes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's weird because I can't imagine a world where chocolate isn't sweet.
It took me a few years to get used to the idea also. Yeah.
Yeah, well, black chocolate that you can buy anywhere here now is kind of bitter.
Yeah, it's bitter, but it's not eaten with pepper. Oh my
I'm
god.
sure there is like
Disgusting.
In
spicy
Mexico,
chocolate
no,
as well.
Aztec
Sorry, I
Aztec
heard
culture.
spicy
I
chocolate.
can't imagine
Yeah,
having
spicy
Aztecs
Yeah.
prepare chocolate with pepper originally, cocoa with pepper.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the original recipe. Then it was modified by us, but it's like, you know, I have a friend from Valencia. He's a sort of paella Taliban. Okay.
Yeah.
He's always terrified when he sees some paella that is not following the original
The rules,
Valencian
yeah.
Oh my god.
But I agree with him.
We also
Probably
have
because it's not
rules.
paella.
another friend from Alicante.
Be
and they got
careful.
terrible
Be
fights.
careful. I'm from
You know,
Valencia.
the fights between Valencian paella and Alicante paella, it's also almost like Spanish omelette with or without onion.
Oh my god. We're going
That's
to
also
start
a
a
good
debate
fight.
now.
Without
This is
onion,
the
of
very
course.
sensitive
I'm leaving.
topic.
Without onion.
Onion.
No.
Adrian,
No.
I cannot trust you anymore.
Oh my god. I
Without
think
onion.
I'm going to
Oh my God.
show you something. Let's see if I have it.
Tortilla.
A tortilla
Yeah,
with
I'm
onion.
going to show you.
What really
A
divides
tortilla.
Spain? How do you prepare tortilla? The two
Yeah.
Spains, with or without onions.
I mean, there's not the
José
way.
Antonio, that the rice in Alicante is not paella,
With onion.
arroz a banda.
Oh yeah, arroz
That's
a banda o arroz con pollo,
Oh, yeah.
arroz con marisco.
Yeah,
Anything
that's
but
different.
paella.
That's different. That's arroz a banda. That's not paella.
But who cares? Like, why does it matter? Like, someone can call whatever
Don't
they
say that,
want.
Mo.
Like,
Don't say that.
it's very like.
Well,
I find the attitude confounding. It's not just in Spain, but in Europe in general. Like, you're very attached to your language, even though it's like your language has evolved so much, but yet you're still like, no, this word means this. It's like, okay, it means this now, but 20 years ago you would have said it meant something else. I don't know.
Yes,
It's like
you're
a big divide, like between
Mo,
the new
imagine
world and the
someone
old
were
world.
to mix up churros with porras. They're not the same thing. It's the
Yeah,
same.
but I don't give a shit if somebody can call something whatever
No,
they
but-
want to. I don't
It's
care.
blasphemy. It's bad. You shouldn't.
No, but I understand the language part, like it evolves, and also we can like change it into other things. Like for example, with gender and patriarchy in the language, we have to change it, and it has to evolve. But with things like paella, for example, like it's a way to understand each other as a civilization. Like paella is this. If you do this other thing, then it's a different thing. It's not paella. You can call it whatever you want to that thing and invent a new
Right
word.
with
But paella is paella.
But why do you care? That's my point. Like, I don't get how you can be so, not you particularly, but you in general, can be so like passionate about it. It's like, I have enough problems without worrying
Okay,
what
I
somebody is
honestly
calling.
think
No,
that
Mo,
but
people are.
in some countries, in Mediterranean countries, I think the food are sort of family bonds. Also, you know, so you identify with some food because you identify this with your childhood, with your family, with your friends, and you respect very much the way the food is prepared at your home place.
But I think
No,
that's
and I-
everywhere in the world.
And I also think that really is a Spanish thing because I think the food is like the one thing that we all could agree that we are proud of. Like other
Yeah.
things, no. But food,
In
yes.
everywhere else, we all kind of bash Spain. Like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
in this, but in food, no, we have a great tradition of culinary.
But I'm
This
thinking
is our
to-
only agreement
no,
against the war.
Yeah, but and there are other good gastronomies in other countries too. And if, for example, a ratatouille is a ratatouille, then that's a
I'm
ratatouille.
thinking of the movie. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the base.
It's a
Now,
very
if you
good
do
movie.
something with similar ingredients, but that is not a ratatouille, then it might be something else, but it's not a ratatouille. That's the same thing with paella, I think.
I love how you
That's my
pronounce
point of view.
ratatouille. It's a very Spanish way of pronouncing ratatouille.
How is it pronounced?
Ratatouille.
Ratatouille. Yeah.
I agree with
Like,
that.
Hmm.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, sorry.
It doesn't matter. It can become a big deal.
No, okay. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm not Taliban of paella because obviously I'm from Madrid. But I feel a bit offended when I was in England, and most of the paella was made with chorizo. And yeah, and I was, this is not paella. Sorry, paella. You never put chorizo in paella. And one of my friends say, oh, this is awesome, paella, I love paella. And I was like, yeah, you love that. But that's not paella, that has chorizo.
Let's be clear.
Sorry, I have
But
to.
that's how the world works. Like people take things from other cultures and they put their own spin on it and they change it and they do things. Like that's how the world works. Like you can stamp your foot as much as you want to, but you're
Now
fighting
you can
the entire history of humanity.
you can understand how Italian feels about Hawaiian pizza.
Yeah, about a lot of pizzas. Yeah, I have this
Yeah.
discussion with Italian before. Like,
You know?
I recently learned that in Sweden they put, oh, what was that? They put something so odd in pizza, like in some parts of Sweden they put like mango on pizza or some atrocious thing like that. I didn't know about
Believe
that.
it.
sounds good.
I believe
That sounds nice.
Yeah,
No, banana. They put banana in pizza. I'm sorry.
even better.
Yeah. Ooh.
I have
But
to-
yeah, I'm a very firm dispenser of paella. Only called paella, something that is worthy of being called paella. But I once won third place for originality in a Valencia Fallas paella contest because me and my friends, we were entering the contest just for fun. But then we accidentally put a lot more spices to it because my friend was adding the spices and the bottle broke and all of the spices went in, and then it happened the same but with the colorant. So the people were like, are you Mexican? Because you're like Mexicans trying to make a paella because it was so spicy and so it was orange, and we won the originality prize and we got a lot of champagne bottles to bring home, so it was cool. But people really gave us the evil eye, like, did you do this on purpose to win the originality prize, or do you really think that paella is this shit? And we're like, no, it was an accident, but then we won, so we went on with it. So it was very funny. But I'm a firm advocate of paella. I just
Now there is a big controversy in the Galician octopus cookers. Okay, for using Galician octopus or using octopus fish in Morocco, Atlantic. Okay, you know, Atlantic's octopus is cheaper, but it looks like it could be even better quality than that. There is a quite fight because obviously it is going against the tradition. Okay, so some people consider that kind of preparing a pulpa feira like a blasphemy or something like that.
We get very passionate about this.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Raquel, what do you think of the paella? Very important topic. Sorry for making you talk. Just to put you into the conversation.
Well, it's not as important for me, but yes, when Eloisa told us that she found chorizo in the paella, well, no, that is just over the point. I cannot accept that. No, not at all.
Especially when they put flags, like a Spanish flag, and they say Spanish cuisine. And you can say it's paella fusion, like Asian cuisine fusion. But I don't know, maybe it's because I was abroad, it was part of my culture, and I thought that's not my culture. Sorry, it's not that. That's why maybe I feel more passionate about it.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I'm from Valencia. My grandmother is from Sueca, where the rice is growth. So I mean, I've eaten a lot of them. In Valencia, actually, many people call paella any dish where you use the paella dish and you cook the rice in a certain way. I've tried them with cauliflower, eggplant, sardines, many things, and those can be paella. But there must be people that know how to cook as far as making I don't know the word in English, sofrito and so on.
Right, that's the point.
And then there's the traditional recipe, which is the one that people then add things to it that then it starts looking like something else. I mean, but anyways, this calling paella or no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just a different dish. In arroz a banda, for example, as I said for Alicante, it's a different dish. Doesn't mean it's any better or worse, but it's cooked differently. That's the story.
That's what I mean. The way to cook
not only the ingredients, the way it is cooked and the way it's served is different. So that, I mean, in Valencia we have arroz al horno, pesos in naps, lots of different rice. They have different names for different ways of cooking. So that's why we tend to be a bit Taliban about when people say, "Oh, this is paella," because I threw everything I found in the refrigerator and I put it all together in the pot and then threw the rice in there. Well, paella is cooked in a different way.
Yeah, like if you are doing different dishes and then you decide to call this other dish as the other one, it's like no, okay. Like paella can have a lot of different ingredients, but you have to cook it in a certain way. The rice has to be in a certain way, etc. To be called paella, even if it has random ingredients, as Eugenia was saying, that the price for originality. Like, yeah, that's what I think about paella. But about cultural in other countries is normal. Like we appropriate things from other countries and mix a lot of elements, and they do the same with ours. In Moscow, I had some drinks in a bar called Barcelona, which is a cool name for a bar, Barcelona, but then it was full of Spanish flags inside and bulls. And it was like, this doesn't fit Barcelona. This is not that, it's the opposite. It's like, they don't know about the process. They don't see awareness. So, yeah.
They are blissfully unaware of everything that's going on. That's
well,
cool.
the same thing will happen here with the Russian restaurants or with the Chinese ones, that they adapt them a lot to what we can eat. I'm sure if we go to a Chinese restaurant, they serve us like, I don't know, I don't know what they call it in English, the chicken crest, whatever the thing is on top, or the tendons or things like that. People wouldn't go there, so they just serve a duck, chicken, pork, and I don't know if any other meat. So they adapt it always to the local customers.
I want to go back to Eloisa's idea because I think it's so cool. Whenever someone tries to make a dish you like paella or like anything like that, but doesn't really do it and just does whatever, it's better to add fusión. Like, yeah, you just did whatever you wanted and try to call it this, but it just amounts to paella fusión. I'm sorry, it's not a real paella, but paella fusión.
Based on a real story.
It's like tortilla española fusión. It's very cool.
Okay, going back to the book, what do you think Simon Blas thinks about paella?
Surprised if he knows what paella is.
For Seymour, for sure, without bananas.
Without bananas.
Not very fond of bananas.
Yeah, I think Seymour would like banana on pizza, like the Swedish people. I think he would enjoy that.
But
Maybe
too much
not.
banana killed him.
What happened with the fish? Maybe not.
Just for fun.
So guys, should we keep talking or stop here? Now that we have still our honor intact, we are not said too many stupid things. We can stop.
I think we said plenty enough. but anyway.
Just a few.
I'm a bit hungry right now after all this talk.
I want to eat now.
Yeah, I'm hungry as well.
Yeah, I want papas arrugadas con mojo.
Yes.
Oh my God, yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about the same thing because I was in a bar in Madrid and they have like, I don't know if they say papas arrugadas or just papas con mojo, but it was like no,
Papas con mojo,
papas
they say.
arrugadas, like it was the normal potato with a bit of salt.
I had such a long
Not
talk
the
with my
same.
best friend from uni about this with Robert, because Robert was so passionate about, no, they have to be very small potatoes.
Yeah.
What's from my island? I was like, what's wrong with normal potatoes? But then he was very adamant that the size really matters, and I was like,
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, it's not the same. Your potatoes that are like this, and our potatoes are very little, very flavory. And I was like, it's a potato, goddamn. But he was so passionate that once there was I don't know. Well, this is a bad time for advertising it, but there was a Canadian food fair once in Plaza Castilla. I think a year ago. And I was remember so much of my Canadian friend when I passed through it that I went to a stand and it said papas arrugadas con mojo instead of papas con mojo. And it was the small papas he was talking about. And I took a photo and I showed him. And he went all the days this fair went on because he missed the small papas. And I was like, I don't see the difference.
It is different. It tastes different.
Really different?
Yeah.
I have to try. Well,
I'm
Andrea,
really
you have to cook papas arrugas for us one time.
I don't
sometime.
know how to. Really, like.
Oh.
Then we'll have to ask Roberto, who's also Canadian, to cook for us.
I'm sure Roberto will know.
Okay, so the next one is on Saturday in Spanish. We are commenting 5 poems, so that's going to be quite interesting. Then we have in English on Sunday, Eugenia's story, Cat Pictures, please, which won several awards for science fiction, right? That's going to be
without her?
She's called, wait, her
Naomi
surname is very
Kritzer.
difficult. Yeah, Naomi Kritzer.
Yeah.
Kritzer. Oh my God. Kritzer.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one because it sounds really good. And then,
can I spoil what's it about? No.
as long as you don't tell us the ending.
I'm just trying to advertise it. It's about.
I think I already sold it very well. That's okay.
It's in a distant future in which an AI does things for people. But the only thing it wants in exchange is cat pictures because it loves cat pictures. And I love cat pictures. So I think it will be cool.
I love the sound of it.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
thought the idea was very cool.
Yeah, it is. Okay, and then we have in Spanish, La culpa es de los tlaxcaltecas.
Chacaltecas.
Who chose that story? That name?
Me, but I don't know how to pronounce it yet. I'm gonna investigate. I'm gonna
Choose it and not pronounce it well. That's not how it works.
but I'm gonna investigate a little bit. Give me time.
I mean, in Spanish pronunciation is tlaxcaltecas. It's just hard.
Tlaltecas. Oh my God, that's difficult. Okay.
Tlaxcaltecas. Tlaxcaltecas.
No.
Anyways, what is about?
I don't know.
Tlaxcala is a city in Mexico.
Andrea, we have to advertise this one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sell this story. I don't know, but I want to put something of this also.
Mm.
And
Also,
this is kind of a very famous story.
Mm. And it's good because we are going to have 3 women in a row because the next one in English is Cat Person by Rupenian. This story seems to be quite controversial. And it's about
I wasn't expecting this.
flirting, flirting and meeting people like, I don't know the word in English for ligar, but like meeting like a sexual partner on the internet or romantic partners on the internet.
Hook up.
Yeah.
So it's going to be controversial, I think. And then we have on Sunday Together by Arndt, which is the one you chose more, right?
Who's Arndt? Like, is it the full name? Or
No, just Arndt. Arndt is the surname.
Oh.
Yeah.
What's it about?
I don't want to spoil anything. It's about a parasitic relationship. I'll say that much.
Okay. All right, so we have a lot of stories to read.
There are a lot.
See you in all of them.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.